I think I've managed to get you in with silage looking hair.
So welcome to another RiderCamTV video, and today we are at our friends at Damerells, and they've very kindly allowed us to take out this brand spanking new Suzuki S650X, which is part of their cafe racer style bikes. Beautiful, beautiful machine. And this one, it's got about 645cc, about 76 PS, so the power, about 64 newton meters of torque. It's only just, well, it's just under 200 kilos, and it's got a tank of 14.5 litres, which doesn't sound an awful lot, but it's got some really nice styling features. So the front of the bike, this lovely bit around the light, almost looks like the BMW cafe racer style bike. That's that really long thing, really beautiful bike. And they've got clip-on handlebars on this bike, and they've got a retro style tank. Now I was trying to work out what they meant by retro style tank, and I'm really not sure whether or not it's the high bit that comes up that's the retro style tank. I'm not sure, but the seat looks really comfortable. It looks a lovely little bike, and it sounds really nice when it's running. So let's go and see what it's like. Wow, starting up, it's really nice. Got a really basic dashboard, but the dashboard's got everything that you should want on it. But doesn't it sound good? Nice little sounding bike, so let's see what it's like. First impressions of where I'm sat almost makes it feel like I'm riding a sports bike, much like the BMW 1000RR, just in the way that the handlebars look. They're not solid handlebars, they apparently clip on and clip off, but they don't look like they're a full set of handlebars like you would normally have, like on the GS or on different bikes. That these look as though they certainly give the feeling that it's a sporty bike, really sporty bike. So this has got about 72 brake horsepower, I think, and it's really not bad actually. It's got a nice feel to it, the steering's got a nice weighting to it. Although I am being thrown forward quite a bit on the bike, I don't feel that I've got much pressure on my, well, in fact I've got no pressure on my wrists whatsoever. Really quite a comfortable position to be in. I'm not sure, because I come from a very sit up and beg seating position, what it's going to actually feel like if I was on it for any length of time. But that's only a personal thing, you know, and getting used to it. But the feeling of the bike, it feels very well put together. The brakes are good. The gears are good. There's certainly no fishing around on my feet for the brake pedal or the gear selector whatsoever. The mirrors are out at a nice length, so I can see everything that I think I need to see. It's got quite a nice sound, although, if I'm honest, the sound doesn't sound that meaty. It sounds like a 650 would. It doesn't sound really meaty, and I guess that's because the can isn't particularly noisy. Where I am sat, however, I'm not getting much wind noise through my helmet, which is quite pleasing. It seems to be creating quite a nice buffer with this kind of screen thing in front of me, creating a nice sort of buffer to go over the helmet without any problems, which is quite nice. And as with any Suzuki, you get some really good switch gear. The switch gear is really defined, it's quite prominent, it's labelled well, you know where it is. And what I do like about this over the Hondas is that the Honda has the horn above the indicator on a lot of cases, or very, very close. And the amount of times you hit the horn when you're actually wanting to use the indicator is quite a lot until you get used to it. Whereas this one, it's just in the right place. I haven't even got to move my hand to get to the indicator with my thumb, which is really quite nice. The seat is comfortable. It is quite a hard, sturdy seat. I don't feel uncomfortable on it at all. The way that I'm thrown forward with the seating position and holding onto the bars makes me naturally grip hold of the tank itself, so that's quite nice. It's quite a nice place to be. The pegs are a little bit higher than I thought they would be actually on this bike, meaning that my knees are a little bit more compressed than they would be on other bikes. But having said that, it's not an uncomfortable position to be in. In fact, I'm finding it quite a comfortable position to be. Certainly takes corners very well. And we'll get out to a few corners in a minute and see exactly how it goes. The suspension's really nice, it's firm, but you can feel what's going on. It's not wallowy, it's not too firm, that's just kind of taking your attention away from where you're riding. I am obviously, because I am being thrown forward in the seating position, having to hold my neck up or hold my head up a little bit higher than I normally would, but that's just a case of getting used to this new seating position. The dials in front of me, although it's quite an old style digital interface, it has got everything where I need it. It's got the rev counter and what gear I'm in, what speed I'm doing, the temperature, time, trip, mileage, range, all of that sort of good stuff, all in good eyesight. And I've said it before on some of the bikes that with some of the positions that you're sat in, that lead you to be leaning over the tank and being more at one with the bike, or more in tune with the bike, more of a racing style seating position, it means that naturally you haven't got to move your head to look at the dials to see what speed you're doing and all of that sort of jazz. It's just in the right place. And that's got to be a good thing. It's got to be a good thing because you're not having to move an awful lot to see those dials. I don't feel that I've got any vibrations coming through the handlebars or through the foot pegs. And the handlebars, strangely enough, I mean, I'm not used to riding a bike like this where the handlebars are split. Lots of people out there, lots of you guys and girls that are watching the video will be used to it, but it doesn't feel unnatural, it doesn't feel unnerving at all to have these sort of handlebars. It naturally makes you want to lean down into the bike. And my arms aren't an uncomfortable width apart. They're certainly not too close, but they're not an uncomfortable width apart. I would imagine for this sort of bike, to have the handlebars from a standard bike like a GS Adventure, you know, the sort of handlebars that are all one piece, you would kind of be, literally your arms would be out too far. So this is quite nice. One thing I did notice when I was manoeuvring the bike at the yard at Damerells is that this steering or the turning circle on this bike isn't that great, to be honest. I don't know why. I don't know whether it's because the bike is slightly longer, perhaps, or whether it's just the makeup of the steering. I'm not sure, but I did notice that when I was manoeuvring, you don't get that much of a turning circle on this one in comparison to some other bikes. But that's how you would only notice that when you were riding at very slow speed or manoeuvring the bike in a yard or a driveway. You're not going to notice that too much when you're out on the road, because when do you need full lock when you're on the road? Certainly leans in very well to corners, and I don't feel that it's any different to any other bike that I've rode, really, in terms of going around the corner. I do feel that it lends itself to actually going into the corners for you, so I haven't literally got to work really, really hard to do it. And I guess, you know, you use counter steering and things like that without even realizing it. And on this bike, it just seems to just fit. It just seems to ride really well and just go in and out of corners really, really quite comfortably. Now, this bike had only done something like 20 miles before we got it. So the tyres are like literally brand spanking new. And as Mark and I very often say, you know, these bikes are loaned to us by our good friends at Damerells and BMW and KTM. And we do want to be asked back because we enjoy reviewing these bikes. And for that reason, we're not going to just rag the hell out of the bikes and go as fast as we can. And both of us use our license every single day, and we need it for our touring. So we don't really want to jeopardize losing a license and potentially losing work just for ragging a bike. Much more comfortable with riding the bike as you normally would and giving an honest opinion of how we find these bikes. And we hope it goes down well. No, it's funny, isn't it? Because on some bikes you find there's a like a natural liking to a bike, and I naturally like this bike. I naturally like the styling, the sound, the way the way it feels, the way that I'm sat. But would it be a bike for me? Particularly this style of bike isn't my style of bike. It's a lovely bike, don't get me wrong, but there's a bike out there for everyone, and we don't always like everything, of course. So for me, this wouldn't be a bike for me, because already, I mean, we've only literally done 5 miles, and I'm quite uncomfortable sat in this position. And that's nothing down to the bike at all. That's just because my normal riding position is on my adventure, and I sit upright, very much upright, and I find that the most comfortable position for me to ride. There will be a lot of people out there that really like this style of bike that don't have a problem with riding in this seating position, because that's what they're used to and that's what they really like. And if that's you, then that's brilliant, and I would never knock that at all, because like I say, there's a bike for everyone. But for me, the seating position really is, it's comfortable, but the way that I'm sat with being forward isn't comfortable for me for a long journey. I mean, after 5 miles, with already having I can already feel my back is starting to ache a little. It wouldn't be suitable for me to have. This is very much a sports bike. That's what it feels. And, you know, Suzuki have labelled it a cafe racer style bike, and it may be so, but I instantly got the impression with sitting on it that it felt different than it looked. And that sounds really weird, and I'll try and explain. So when I saw this bike, I thought, you know what, that looks like a cafe racer type style bike. Looks really fun to ride, looks really comfortable. And then I got on it, and it feels more of a sports bike. It feels like I'm on a BMW 1000RR or a Fireblade or something like that. And I think that's just down to the way that I'm sat, the seating position that I'm in, which is quite unexpected, really. Pleasantly unexpected. It's a nice bike to ride. The brakes are really good. The engine braking's really good. The clutch is really responsive. The gears are really responsive. Overall, I think it's just a really nice bike. And if it's the style that you wanted to get, for the price that this bike is, I think it was about 6,500, something like that, brand new. It's really not a huge amount of money to have a brand new bike that's this sort of style. Like I was saying a little bit earlier, when you're leaning in, the steering actually takes you into the corner, which is lovely, actually. So, hello again. We're with the SV650X, a Suzuki cafe style racer. It's got some different bits on it to make it look cafe-esque. It's got apparently a retro tank, and I think the retro bit is the fact that it comes up and then goes over, and it's quite thin, as opposed to being quite new and kind of shooting up and being quite fat, I guess. It does look really nice. I liked the bike, but I didn't love the bike. And
Are you lying?
No, not lying at all. It's hard to put it into words. I think I really like the bike. It contrasted with me. You look at the whole of the bike, and there is a BMW that looks the same sort of thing like this, that goes out and around. And I thought, that looks quite a nice cafe style racer bike to ride. I wasn't thinking that it was going to be right down almost like a sports bike, and that's perhaps in my head that I got it totally wrong, but it looked just a nice pleasant place to be. And then when I got on the bike, it wasn't an abnormally pleasant place to be. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't my style of riding, because you're chucked right over. You've got handlebars that are 2 pieces, and it's more of a sports bike. So when I sit on it, I'm literally right over. So I don't know whether you can show that, but I'm normally riding like this, and it's not putting the bike down at all, because lots of people like this style of bike. But for me, it was a bit of a shock, because I didn't think that this bike was going to hold me that far, so I don't know whether my view of the bike has been biased by my brain thinking that I wasn't going to be that far and being a little bit disappointed. I'm not sure. But in terms of how it rides really well. It sounds quite good. It goes around corners really well, and you're not fighting with anything to go around corners. The counter steering that you use is just as normal as any bike, and it actually pushes you into a corner, much like an RT. It kind of folds into the corner, so you're not actually pushing and pulling too much. The power is, there's got good power there, but the big selling point for this, for me, is it's really well made. It sounds good and it's smooth. It's not horribly vibey bike to ride. I didn't have huge vibes coming through here.
And it's 2 cylinders?
And it's 2 cylinders.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not too vibey there. For this sort of position, I'm not too scrunched up either. It's not uncomfortable. My hip wasn't going to come out like on the 1000RR from BMW, where I thought my hip was just going to pop out. There are some really, really good plus points to this bike, aren't there? I mean, look at the style of it. It just looks beautiful. And the price point, I think it was about £6,500, wasn't it, Mark? So for the price point, you're getting a huge piece of bike, a really nice bike to ride, and there will be lots and lots of people that love this position to ride in. They really will, but for me it just wasn't the sort of position I'd like to be in. The mirrors, they again could have done with coming out a little bit further. I don't know why we seem to be having this issue all of a sudden, really, where a lot of the wing mirrors just aren't far enough apart, but they're a lot lower, and I quite like them a lot lower. They're almost like the RT mirrors, where they're quite low and you think they're going to be in the wrong position, but they're in the right position. They just need to be further out a little bit. The switch gear on the handlebars is exactly the same switch gear as any other Suzuki. It's really well made, really good, really well labelled, so you know where it is. And unlike some of the other bikes we've ridden, this is quite prominent, this indicator, and you get some real good feedback when you press it. And I've noticed on some of the other manufacturers that sometimes the horn is very close to the indicators or even above it. And one thing I did notice, which I really liked about this bike, is when you're riding, your thumb is naturally there, and all I had to do was that. I didn't have to fish around for it. I didn't have to look to think, oh, I'm going to hit the horn rather than the indicator. So I thought that was really good. The clutch had a really good feel. The brakes were really good. The suspension was just right. And the ride was really good. It sounds like I'm being really negative, and I'm really not being negative. It's a lovely, lovely bike. It's not a bike I would choose to ride, but it's a really, really lovely bike. The screen that we've got on here, although really basic, and I started thinking to myself when I was riding, it's really basic nowadays. You know, this is 2018 and there's other manufacturers put in different colours on there, having TFT screens, having LCD screens, all that sort of great stuff. But this does exactly what it should do. So having all these gizmos and gadgets really wouldn't fit in with the cafe racer type style bike, and this does everything you need. It's got the rev counter, how many miles you're doing, what gear you're in, how much fuel you've got, what the temperature is, all of that good stuff. It's got everything right in front of you. And another massive positive of when I was talking, if I can get you to step back a bit, Mark, when I was riding it, this position, although I hate this position for me for riding, it's just, I like to be up here. However, it's really good for one thing, because when you're riding along on our bikes and you're sat up like this, to look at all the dials and stuff, you have to physically either move your eyes or you tend to move your head down to look at it. And for that split second, you're taking your concentration off the road. If you're down here on one of these bikes, your natural position is to be there, so you kind of hold your head up, but your eyes naturally fall down. You're not actually having to move as much to see that as you would do on a sit-up and beg bike, which I thought was a really good plus point, because you're going to spend more time concentrating on the road. It's got the usual kind of beautiful Suzuki-like stuff, the nice can on the back, it's got a chain. It just looks really nice. The colour makes it pop. I did like it. Mark's behind the camera laughing, saying, I bet you did. I do like it. I really do like it. It's a good bike, and there's a bike out there for everybody that wants a bike. different bike appeals to different people. It doesn't appeal to me for a bike that I'd have, but if you're in the market for a cafe racer style bike, this is one that you shouldn't overlook. It's really good on price, it's really well made, it's really cheap to run, it's got a good sized tank and it will get you far, and it looks good as well. So for that reason, I would get it if you're in for that price range and you wanted a cafe style racer bike. So if you like the video, give us a massive thumbs up. I feel that there's going to be some of those coming. That's there too as well. But you know, we just review bikes as we see them. Try not to be too negative on bikes that we don't enjoy that much. But hey, you know, we don't enjoy everything all the time. But great little bike. If you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Like Mark said in one of his videos, at some point we say it, we don't really know what it means. We do say it. We don't really know what it means, but we like having subscribers. So hit that subscribe button and we'll see you in the next video.